Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Lynn and today I'll be making an infinity card. This one is a circle shaped card and I'll be using this die set from Concord and Ninth. It's actually called Endless Birthday, not Infinity Birthday. And if you've never seen an infinity card, it's really cool, really fun. You have these different folds as you just saw that reveal sort of different scenes, and the reason why it's endless is because it'll just, as you continue to fold it, it'll loop right back around to the front of your card, and then you can just keep going. And this half circle die cut here is basically going to make up your card base, and you'll need 4 of these pieces. And I decided to just find a circle die out of my stash to cut out my matte layer. And so I have this white piece of cardstock that I've taped down to my guillotine. It marks exactly the halfway point. And that way I can just cut my matte layers exactly in half. So they'll have a nice border all the way around the outside of the circle, but they will meet up with each other and be flush against each other in the center. And you could, if you wanted, use the die that does come in the set. It provides a matte layer, but it's really just for that center portion of the circle. It's not the full half circle. So that's why I just picked a circle die out of my stash. And I decided last minute that instead of a white card base on the front, I'm going with a coordinating solid color blue. And so I'll die cut that. All of these half circles are die cut from 60 or 65 pound paper. And the reason why I'm going with a lighter weight paper or cardstock, even though this is going to be an interactive card, is because of the additional mats and layers that I'll be adding to the front and the back of these half circles. So when I made this card the first time, all of my layers, even the pattern papers, were roughly around 60 pounds. I'm not exactly sure on the pattern paper because the weight of the paper wasn't advertised, but I just judging, as a comparison against my 60-pound papers, it felt like it's about that weight. And so even though that card turned out okay, I think that was kind of on the verge of getting to be too thick. So that's why this time what I'm doing is I'm using my Digi papers from Polka Doodles. This green one in particular comes from a bundle from the Horace and Boo paper bundle. And then the blue one that I'll be using on the front of my card is actually a leftover piece from an earlier birthday card that I made. It's from the Winnie's celebration paper bundle, and it's one that's actually multicolored, but I color shifted it blue so that it's all blue and is more fitting with the style of card that I want to make today. And so here's, I'm just going to simply kind of attach all of these, but I do keep these extra little templates that are die cut and numbered. So I'm always constantly referencing my fully assembled version, which I'm holding now and lining my papers up to, but then I have all 4 pieces die cut and numbered separately. And that way I know what portion of each of those die cuts is visible when. The first iteration of the fold, so basically the front of your card, is easiest to decorate because that's seen in full, and so that's not complicated. The backmost of your card base is also pretty easy because that's pretty much seen in full as well. But it's when you get to iteration 2 and 3 that is actually comprised of a mix between one of these full circles and the second full circle. So that's where for me it gets a little bit complicated in terms of what is actually visible and where exactly is that pattern coming from. So what I like to do is on the backs of both circles, I like to just line it with the exact same pattern paper because you'll see a mix of the two, and that way, if it's all the same pattern paper, I think it just makes it a lot simpler for me anyways, so that I know nothing's going to really clash. If you were going to ink or stamp your backgrounds directly onto the card base, then I would recommend going with maybe 100-pound weight paper for your card base. I'm only going lighter weight because I'm adding the additional layers of pattern paper. And so now that I have all of my pieces lined with their pattern papers, I'm going to attach the two full circles. So I have my backmost taped together, and that's face down. So what you're seeing, that green checkered pattern, that's the back of that card panel. And then I'll line up the front of my card panel on top of that. And I have this another half circle die cut that I use to line up my 4 pieces for half circles. And all I've done is just die cut it, and I've folded it along the 2 score lines that the die puts in, and then I also folded it in half. So when I fold it in half like this, I can line up the fold to the edge of one of those half circles, and that gives me an exact a way of lining this up so that I know exactly where everything should go. And I put initially that template where I want my circle to glue down, and I only put some glue right in that little triangle there. And then I shifted the template down, and again, lining up the fold with the edge of the circle below it, I have a something that I can butt up my half circle to in order to get the exact perpendicular angle that I need. And that's the key to this, really, is you want to attach these circle pieces so that the seam down the center is exactly perpendicular. So I'm going to use this template again to figure out where I should put glue. It's only in this little triangular section where the 2 score lines meet up in the corner here. And since I'm using a liquid adhesive, I am staying clear from those score lines so that that liquid adhesive doesn't ooze past the score line. If you're going to use a dry adhesive, then I would definitely recommend applying your dry adhesive so it butts up right against your score lines. And I forgot to do this, but I would also recommend folding on all of these score lines before you start gluing things together. It just makes it a little bit easier to train all of those score lines in advance, especially if you're like me and you're a little bit impatient, and once you start to glue things down, you want to start playing with the mechanism right away. But using a liquid adhesive, you definitely want to give that adhesive enough time to have a really strong stick. But what I do try to do, even before my glue is completely dry, is I do try to fold and bend it a little bit just to check that I don't have glue where it shouldn't be. Because while it's still wet, there's the potential to maybe still wipe some of that excess glue off. But once it's dried, then you might get some tearing. So here, again, I'm using my template to figure out exactly where I can place my glue. And then I'm going to adhere the second half. So once you get that first half down and applied at the right angle, then the second half is really easy to adhere because you can butt it up against the first half that you placed. So I find having that extra die cut is helpful to use as a template. And in my little storage pouch, I just keep all of those extra pieces in the pouch with it so that anytime I go to use this die set, I'll have it ready to go. So I'm going to give everything a good burnish and also give this some time to dry so that I can really fold and train all of these folds so that by the time the card recipient gets this, it'll already sort of be exercised a little bit, so it'll be easier for them by the time they get it. Now, time for the decorating part. So this is a sentiment that comes in, I'll have to check where I got this sentiment. I think it's in one of the celebration sentiment bundles, but I'll try to find links to everything and then leave them in the description box below. But this Digi set of Horace and Boo is so adorable, and I just printed out just a few variations, different sizes. I even kind of separated one of the images so that Horace and Boo were actually separate, and then where they overlapped a little bit on the original, I just sort of filled in some of those lines. And I didn't know exactly which ones I would use for this card, so I colored up some of them, at least the smaller ones that I thought would fit. And I will kind of sprinkle them in throughout the different iterations that you'll see as you interact with this infinity card. The little speech bubble, talk bubble die cut is a die that does come in the Concord and 9th die set. And it just barely fit this sentiment, but even if it didn't, the nice thing with Digis is you can always scale them, so it would have been no problem to scale it smaller and then just print it out again. And so that's one of the beauties of working with Digis, is you always have that as an option. You can kind of go as big or as small as you like. I got a little bit lucky here where I had some images that worked out to be the perfect size, and so I just took one of my that matte layer die that I mentioned earlier and die cut out two of the images. And I think one of these images is actually part of, I think one of them was one that I kind of clipped out and separated from its original design. And I did snip this happy birthday sentiment in half, and I'm just going to outline it with a black Sharpie just to give it a little bit of a shadow. And that's essentially my card complete. Now, I did not really decorate the third iteration, which you'll see here. That's rather plain, and I left the back blank so that I have a space to actually, sign the card and write a little message. But I really love these infinity dies. They give you a lot of room to decorate with, and the fact that it's a circle-shaped card also makes it extra special as well. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please consider liking, commenting, and sharing. And if you want to catch new videos as I post them, consider subscribing to my channel and ringing the notification bell. Thanks so much. Until next time, happy crafting and have a fantastic day. Bye.